Greetings, everyone. David Nuno here. TexAgs Rewind brought to you by T-Mobile, our proud sponsor here. Visit T-Mobile.com/acrossamerica to learn more about how you get value and coverage there with T-Mobile. All right, so obviously episode 2647, not our funnest show to do, but it had to be done, guys. On the Go Hour, we gave our thoughts, obviously, on the LSU game. It did not go as planned. We were disappointed about that. And Billy Liucci, the state of this program. Obviously, he thinks, I've said obviously a lot, but he does think Jimbo's the right man for the job. Not that that's even being part of the argument right now, but people disappointed about the way the game played out, the way the season played out, but they're headed in the right trajectory. Tom Hart on A&M's expectations, and Peter Burns recaps what was a crazy rivalry week. All right, it is TexAgs Rewind. One play turns into another play, turns into a victory for LSU, and that's how we begin the Go Hour this morning. Olin Buchanan joining us here, as he always does, from 8 to 9 o'clock. OB, good morning to you. Have you made sense of it yet?
Made sense, I guess. I think that loss to LSU is probably even more depressing than the other three this season.
Yeah.
And not just because it was LSU and the way you lost. There's so many things you can look at and say, if one thing, had you made one different decision, had you been one step faster, had the referee made one different call that probably should have gone your way, that didn't, that's how close you are. And when you get that close to winning, and you feel like, well, I think it's one of those games you don't feel like they beat you as much as you lost to them. It was more on you than them.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say most of the night LSU was the better team. Well, the first half LSU was the better team. But two plays to me are the difference in this game. Well, two scores, right? There's several plays that led up to those scores, but you give up points at the end of the first half. You give up points at the end of the second half. That's the game, folks. I mean, and I went on Matt Moscona's show on Friday, and he was asking me about, what LSU or where A&M is vulnerable, and I said, really, they're vulnerable on the big plays. And he says, well, you guys don't have that much to worry about then because the LSU doesn't have big plays. For some reason, Max Johnson looked like an NFL quarterback, throws for over 300 yards, and yes, he was under duress, but he made the throws when he had to. This defense, which for the second half, for the most part, played lights out, allowed LSU to go at 85 yards.
Yeah, and I think that there's so much focus, as there should be, on the game-winning touchdown pass for LSU. And did the guy, Dre Jenkins, push off or not? And he probably did. But if the A&M defense doesn't, and I can't put this in all caps enough, incredulously let him get wide open on the sideline. Somebody, one guy lets him go. It looks like they're in zone, and I guess the safety doesn't come over, or and he gets 31 yards on one play. When they've got to throw, that's when I think it went from, okay, I think the game's going to be won to, okay, we're in trouble now. Because they had like you just said, there was less than a minute to go. They just converted a 4th and 6, but they're still like around the 35, something like that.
Yeah,
and maybe 40. And you're thinking at that time, if you make one defensive play in play without stopping the clock, and you've been sacking the guy like crazy, 6 sacks in the second half alone. You feel like you're still in pretty good shape. But when you give up one 31-yard gain, that changes everything.
Changed the whole thing. They convert on that 4th and 6. They go right back to it in the air. And at that point, you're like, wait, have I seen this movie before? And it played out that way.
So that's one of the many plays you sit back. But then you can go back and say, well, if A&M decides to run the ball on 3rd and 2.
Yep.
Maybe you don't get the first down, okay? But you force LSU to take its final timeout.
Yes.
Well, when then you don't know if they have enough time to come back, because when Michael Clemens got his 4th sack on 2nd and 5, 2 plays before LSU picked up the first down on 4th and 6, they called timeout to stop the clock.
Yep.
So there's all these things you think, why did you put it on the quarterback he had a good game. But you're going to make him roll?
To me, getting the first down isn't – I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't get it. I know if you get the first down, game's over, right? But not getting that first down, it's not the end of the world. It's forcing them to – because time, that's the best real estate in the world. And you would have forced them to use another timeout and eaten up time there on the whenever they did get the ball.
Well, I think they would have forced a timeout. Maybe they didn't because I guess they didn't stop the clock. I guess they didn't stop the clock when the Weidemeyer was dropped for a 2-yard loss, which surprised because by the way, we don't have the best view from the press box where we're at.
Especially at LSU,
especially on that side of the field. But so even if they didn't, I still think you had a better chance to get a 2-yard gain running the ball than you did taking your quarterback and making him roll left and then hoping that somebody gets enough depth and all those things. And I think you would have had a better chance running the football with the running back that did not carry the ball past the first carry of the 4th quarter.
Yep.
Devon Achane.
It always will be. I go back to the 2013 season and think about what could have been. And it's not, they were terrible on defense that year. That would have been very hard for that to be a championship caliber team. They were and that was prior to the playoff. They were so bad on defense. But with Johnny and Mike, it was a what if game against Bama. What if you don't throw an end zone interception there and on a fade and the receiver doesn't go up for it? Do you go up 21-7? And then the what if the next week is do they call the horse collar or does Johnny not injure his shoulder right in the same spot where Calzada injured it against Auburn? It changes everything about the look and feel of that season. You beat Auburn and you're probably sitting there in the top 4 going into the last 2 weeks with Johnny as the Heisman frontrunner along with Jimbo Fisher's quarterback, Jameis Winston. So this one has that kind of feel of there were flaws that held the team back from being truly, truly elite, but this was a year where you kind of didn't have to be, right? It was a year where you didn't have to be elite. You just had to be better than 3 of the 4 teams you lost to on that day. And on another day, on any other day, you probably you are better than I think LSU and Mississippi State, and you're probably better than Ole Miss. And I think that's hard to say because Ole Miss is ranked so high now in that crowd. But go back and watch that game. And A&M slept through half of that football game on the road in a monster game for Ole Miss and still almost won it. They were a 1st and goal away from taking a lead with about 6 minutes left. So, you go back and look at all those things and you go, this is what could have been. And to me, that's the story of the season is watching Haynes King go down early. And I know people outside of A&M will say, well, I mean, the guy only played 1 game. But if you know this program and you know how excited folks were about what Haynes could do this season, and because of the style of quarterback he was.
Well, to go ahead, I thought that was a good drive, and A&M looked really good. I think A&M's the better team. They didn't play like it though. I was really surprised, and LSU did play with emotion, and to have a team that wants to play and wants to play hard late in the season is certainly valuable. But I just think overall from an A&M perspective, that's a very disappointing loss, not just within the scope of that game and the opponent and the recruiting that happens within Houston, as we talked to Jimbo and Ogeron about, but also, summarizing the season. I think it's takes you to 500 in conference play, and that's not what you hope to be. And Billy, we talk about this a lot. We talked about this a lot with Gabe for years, right? Mm-hmm. When you're judging and talking A&M specifically, when you're judging where A&M is, to me, it's not enough just to be good or just to say, hey, that was a good win or a good season. Because when you brought in Jimbo and you dedicated the resources to this program, you raise the bar and expectations. Yeah. And so the judging is against where you want to be, not where you are, or not where you've been. It's the goal is to be like Alabama, right? Yeah. And not to say you have to be there overnight. So then you judge games, seasons, series, efforts against a championship level of expectations.
I came into last week's game against Auburn thinking that Bama was going to give Georgia a run because I didn't think that Georgia had taken on an offense like Bama's, and I wanted to see what they did and where they had to score points. But after what I saw Auburn do to them, I'm like, that's done.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there is something to say about the resiliency for Alabama, who I think, again, they've got a good team, right? I mean, they're not Florida State by God, or Louisville or anything like that. They are solid. There's something to be said about gutting out good wins when you don't have a great team. And I think, seeing how happy Saban was after that Iron Bowl win and how he's gone to bat for his guys, Nick knows that this is an okay team. Like, I think that's why he defends them so well, because he's like, listen, we're not good. Like, he's not going to go out there and throw his guys underneath the bus and say that, but the way that he reacts and not going to the whip, and he told his guys at halftime of the Iron Bowl, down 10-0, he said, have fun. You ever heard that from Nick Saban? Like, just go out there and have fun. Like, he knows this team is not good. Stop putting the pressure of last year's team on it. And again, I think what he thinks about this team will come to fruition on Saturday, and that's the reason why I think it's Georgia in a pretty big time victory.
That'll do it for TexAgs Rewind, brought to you by T-Mobile. Want to recommend that you guys like, share, comment, do all that good stuff. Help the show out, help the algorithm out. We'll see you guys tomorrow.